All right. So we are finding that comfortable seat. And if you can, give yourself that deep inhale, just a little deeper inhale, longer exhale to settle into the weight of that seat. And just a reminder, you may find there is no comfortable seat, so you might be resting on your back. If you're resting on your back, settling into maybe that back space of shoulder blades, spine, and low back. One more nice deep inhale and longer exhale. And then as we're seated here, eyes open or closed, whichever way feels best to you. Give yourself an opportunity. I love this saying, and this is not my saying, it's Hala Corey, who I study with, to check in on the weather. What's the weather like in there? If you had to describe some internal feelings right now, maybe they're physical feelings, maybe they are, sensations that we're feeling with emotion or the thinking mind. Just checking on the weather, making note. And when we make note, we try to do that with curiosity. And that weather may stay the same, that weather may change throughout class. It's just a nice way to check in to see what might be happening with you as you're going through your practice. Tonight, I'd like to do a bit of centering with breath. And really what I'd like to do is notice the rhythm of your breath. So we're not changing anything. We're not going to extend the breath, which we sometimes do. We're just simply noticing breath. And as you're breathing in, you're counting for yourself the number of beats it takes you to inhale. And as we're breathing out, we're counting for ourselves the number of beats it takes us to exhale. So maybe about 5 breaths here, just noticing the number of beats it takes you to breathe in and the number of beats it takes you to breathe out. And then letting go of that awareness of the number of beats for now. We're going to return to that at the end of class. And we're not necessarily working towards change, but often as we're calming the central nervous system, we'll notice that our breath extends, that we have longer inhale and a longer exhale. And it's just worth noting for ourselves if that change does occur. It's okay if it doesn't. So just if you can for a moment, put that number in your mind, the number of beats it took you to inhale, the number of beats it took you to exhale, so that we can remember that and recall that here at the end of class. So take a nice deep inhale. We're going to do a short seated practice here as we're warming up. We won't be here long. So for anybody who is resting on their back, come and join us in a comfortable seat. We're going to extend arms out. So we're going to do a little bit of shoulder warm up here and palms face up. So as I inhale, I reach my fingertips up towards the ceiling. Some of us might come parallel. You're going to see me go a little bit more V. As I exhale, I let my hands float back down to the floor. So I'm going to take a deep inhale, expanding into that rib cage if possible. Maybe even that belly, and then exhale. You might prefer to turn palms down. You might leave palms facing up. What feels best in your shoulders? Let's do 2 more of those. A nice deep inhale. As we reach those arms, we're paying attention to shoulders. Shoulders trying to melt away from ears. Exhale, arms reach back out. Inhale. Last time, we'll reach those fingertips. And exhale, arms reach out, palms up or down, whatever feels best to you. Letting those palms now rest somewhere along the thighs, knees, or shins, if those are accessible. I'm going to turn sideways. We're going to do a bit of a seated cat-cow. So with hands resting, On your exhale, we'll draw that belly in. I'm going to push my shoulder blades to the back of the room, dropping my chin into the notch of my collarbones. And I push through those shins, knees, or thighs to open my heart, lift my chin just a little bit. Exhaling, pressing to round, feeling that rounding all the way from tailbone to back of skull. Inhale, we open up, looking up if appropriate. Now, if you find your neck doesn't like that, keeping your gaze just straight ahead. Let's do 2 more of those. Exhaling, pressing to round. Inhaling, arching the back, opening that chest, chin area. Last time, exhale, press to round. Inhale, opening heart and chest. We'll come back through center. We're going to give ourselves a gentle twist to the right, which is to the lotus side of my room here. So twisting to the right, maybe the head gets involved and looks over the shoulder. We're asking what the neck wants here. If it would rather be a little less strain or tension in the neck, you can just look to the side. A few breaths in this gentle twist. Then we'll come on back through center, twisting to your left, using those arms and hands as a little bit of leverage. And again, maybe we're able to look behind us, maybe gaze stays to the side or even to the front. We're going to come on back through center. I'm going to ask if you're seated on something, go ahead and remove it. We're going to come with soles of the feet out in front of us. My hands are reaching behind me. And if I need a little bit less tension in the front of the shoulders, my hands go wider. They can come in closer for a little more stretch. Fingers for sure, though, go to the sides of your mat. So not facing backwards if we can help that. So from here, pressing into the palms, stretching through the shoulders, keeping your gaze straight ahead. We're just going to lengthen through that front side of the torso. So it's a great stretch to do at the end of your day, especially if you've had your head over a computer, over a book, if you've been in a seated position for a long period of time. Let's just do 2 more breaths with this idea of spreading those collarbones, opening the heart a little bit deeper. When you're ready, we're going to change it. Hands grab behind the thighs. Press shoulder blades to the back of your room, nodding chin, and maybe even kind of consider slouching here. So my shoulders are rolling forward. My chin is tucked in. I'm pressing the space in the back of the heart to the back of the room. 3 more breaths here. That stretch from the spine out to shoulder blades, maybe low back as well, depending on how deep we're able to get into this stretch. We'll rise back up. We're going to come into our hand and knee tabletop position. And you might cross ankles over and come right on over into tabletop. You might need to swing those legs around, especially if hip joints are feeling a bit compressed here. Just a reminder, you can go up on fists. You can be on palms. So give your tail a pretty big wag. And it's tough to see here because it's a little hard to see with a sideways view, but I'm going to give my tail a really big wag where I might get my hips closer to my mat, stretching and opening hips just a bit. Your wag might be a little less if you're feeling or experiencing anything in that low back or even shoulder joints that say, I don't need to go quite that far. It's a nice little lateral stretch, a little opener for our glutes, and also a little bit more rhythm through that spine. Let's just do a couple more on each side. And then we'll come on back through center, sending knees wide. So my toes are going to touch. My knees go wide, pressing back into a wide knee child's pose. And here, we're really hoping that the belly drops towards the floor. Now, if that's tricky, you can still keep the knees wide. You can go down to elbows and let your belly drop towards the floor. So we're arching that back. Resting for just a few breaths here to get that stretch to that inner groin area, a little relaxation in that low back area, some stretch through the arms. When you're ready, we're gonna rise up. We're gonna stretch the outside of the hip, and I'm hoping this translates through the video. So I'm gonna take my right leg, and this is my true right leg. I'm gonna extend it out, and I'm gonna swing it behind me. So it's going over to the left side. And then I'm gonna give myself a little gaze over at those toes. So right leg swings behind. I'm looking over my left shoulder to open up that right side rib cage area, maybe even a little bit of that right hip. 2 more breaths here. And then I'm gonna go ahead and swing it straight out. So now it's coming straight out of my hip to stretch that inner thigh area. And from here, we might stay on palms, or some of us might go down to elbows to drop the head. So finding the space, again, that makes sense for you to open up that inner thigh area, maybe even that hamstring area. Hip openers here at the beginning of class. We'll rise up to palms, knee comes back in, and we're gonna do the other side. I'm just gonna turn around so you can see that side. So now it is your left leg that swings behind you. So as it's swinging, we then give a good look over our right shoulder. So feeling some left side body stretch, maybe left hip area stretch. This lateral opening assists in releasing the low back. This release maybe of the glute med, a nice way to release a little bit of trigger point area. We'll come back through center, and we're gonna swing that leg out, straight out from the hips. We either stay on palms or go down to our elbows. 4 breaths here, just trying our best to relax into this space. We'll rise back up, knee comes back in. We're gonna give all a little tail wag. And I'm gonna turn to face you. We are gonna be doing a little bit more lateral stretching, and if it's helpful to go so you have your long mat to your side, you're welcome to do that. We're gonna kick out your right leg. So just as we were stretching, we come down to your left hand. Arms gonna reach up, and we start some big circles. It doesn't matter which direction you go. Just opening the shoulders, stretching through. If it's tough to get to the floor, you don't have to go to the floor. You can leave your hand right at your hip. If it's tough to get that straight leg, you can bend the knee. So lots of options here to give you a little bit of relief in that hip joint. We're gonna reverse our arm circle. As big a reach as you can tolerate in that shoulder joint to help us expand. Let's do 3 more. And last time. We'll rise back up. We come back to our knees. And remember, that's always a bit of a balance to get to both knees. Opposite leg now. Left knee extends out. We come down to the right hand. Options are soft bent knee or to stay put with arm up. If you're going down, and no matter where you're at, we're gonna start those big circles. Doesn't matter which direction. A big reach. A few of you might enjoy reaching behind you to get a deeper stretch. Some of us might keep that circle smaller if the shoulder's really talking to us. 1 more circle in this direction, and then we're gonna reverse our circle. Breathing fully here. So sometimes when we're in these interesting stretches, the body's inclination is to hold their breath. So check in with that breath. Let's do 2 more. And last one. We'll rise back up. We'll bring the knee in. Once the knee is in, go ahead. Be careful here, deciding where you'd like to be. We're going to tuck our toes. Some of us might be able to tolerate the weight of the body on the toes. Some of us, that's not going to happen. So if it's a better idea because you experienced some interesting things in those toes to come to tabletop with a toe tuck, go to that space. If none of those are good ideas because you're experiencing some pain in those toe joints, just go ahead and point your toes. So that toe squat, you might be in a full toe squat, you might have some weight off, you might be in a tabletop. It's a great stretch for your nice little tendon that runs from your big toe. Also a good stretch for your Achilles along the ankle. No fun stretch for most of us, but a necessary stretch to keep those feet healthy. One more breath here. And then we're gonna go ahead, everybody comes to tabletop. Just lift those feet, give them a little wiggle, a little shake. We'll come down to elbows. So we might stay put here. We might walk elbows a little bit further and go into what looks more like a quarter dog. We might tuck toes and come up into our dolphin. No matter where you're at, we're gonna be there for 5 breaths. If hamstrings are feeling very tight tonight, go ahead and bend and soften knees. You're pressing your heart a little closer to your thighs. This is about the torso, not so much the legs. Trying to find some length through that torso from tailbone all the way to the back of your skull, or maybe you'd like to think about the top of your head. One more breath here. Everybody comes on down. And then we're gonna bring palms on. We're gonna do a nice gentle tuck of the tailbone to come into a forward fold. Take your time getting there. Your forward fold might look a little bit more like elbows on top of knees. Soft bent knees protects that low back, keeps the strain out of the back. In this forward fold, if you give your head a nice nod, yes, and a little shake, no. We'll reach our arms wide. We're gonna rise up with an inhale. We'll reach those fingertips to the sky. And as we exhale, we bring hands to heart. Hands come on down by our sides. We're gonna find our first mountain pose. I'm gonna suggest 4 fingers between the toes tonight, a little wider stance. If it's part of your practice to bring your big toes together in your mountain pose, go for it. We'll let our hands just come gently down by our sides, either palms facing thighs or palms facing forward. And if you will, rocking forward and back on those toes. Just finding some space here, some solid connection through those feet. And then when you're ready, maybe rolling to the inside and out. We'll let those feet land and take a moment to notice big toes out to your pinky toes, feeling that entire ball of the foot. From pinky toes back to the outside edge of your heel, wrapping all the way around to the inside edge of your heel, and right through the midline to your big toe again. You want to feel that whole foot connected. That's an important connection for our sense of grounding. And then noticing knees. If we lock those out, go ahead and micro soften knees. Noticing if you're gripping in the belly or the buns. Could we let those go just a little bit more? If the shoulders are feeling tense, I always say go a little bit more tense. So you might draw up and then see if we can release them back down. Pausing here in our mountain pose to feel the strength of our legs supporting us, the strength of our spine, the length of our arms, and maybe a little freedom in the head and neck. Knowing that throughout the practice tonight, you can return here at any time you might need to. If you need to reconnect, catch breath, or just need a moment to gather your thoughts. We'll bring palms together right in front of the heart. I'm gonna go sideways. We're gonna do our nice little halfway lift. So fingertips begin to reach up towards the ceiling. As we exhale, we keep the knees soft, arms reach wide. We'll press into shins or thighs. We skip those knees to come into that nice flat back. Releasing back down to see if we can look through the legs. Arms reach wide as we rise back up. Fingertips reach all the way to the ceiling. And we draw those hands back to heart. Let's add that breath emphasis. So we inhale, fingertips reach. As we exhale, soft bent knees, rounded back, hands reach wide. We press into shins to inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, release back down, arms reach wide again as we rise back up. And exhale, bringing hands back to heart. 2 more times. Inhale, fingertips reach. Exhale, soft bent knees, dive forward. Pressing into shins or thighs. Inhale, halfway lift so you can get long through the top of your head. And then exhale, release that head to look through legs. Arms reach back out. Inhale, we rise. Back up. Exhale. Hands come to heart. Last time. Inhale, fingertips reach. Exhale, arms reach wide. Soft bent knees. We reach down to where it makes sense. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, release back down. I'm going to ask you to get a hold of that floor. So we bring the hands down. We're going to take a step back in a low lunge with that right leg. So my right leg has stepped back. My hands might stay on the floor. I might look a little bit different. If I've got a lot of compression in the front of the thigh, I might have hands up on the tops of my thighs. If I'm able and my hip structure allows, I might have both hands on the inside. So in this low lunge, hanging out here and breathing fully, thinking about weight. If I had more weight to the front of my right thigh, more weight to the front of the pelvis, letting that sink just a little bit deeper. When you're ready, we're all going to stair step up to the knee. Whoa, I lost my balance. We're going to stair step up to the knee. Our right arm reaches towards the ceiling. And for now, it just stays put there. We're going to send a little weight, easy weight. So be careful of that front knee forward. I'm not going that much more forward. I'm keeping a tailbone tuck with that arm reaching. It's always a possibility. Shoulder doesn't love that so much. So bending into the elbow for a cactus arm. Stretching just a little deeper, maybe into the crease of that thigh. One last breath here. And then we'll bring the hand down. We're gonna step back into our first down dog. Now there's a possibility down dog's not your thing. If down dog's not your thing, we can go down to elbows and be here upside down. We can also simply hang out in a modified child's pose, either toes tucked under or on knees and elbows rounding back with toes tucked under. Full deep inhales and exhales here. Down dog, that great yoga pose that helps bring some balance to the energetic system, but also just some length to undo gravity. On your next exhale, we're gonna come down to knees. And this time your right foot comes forward. Right foot comes forward. We might have to walk that left leg back just a little bit. Same options apply. We might frame the foot. Hands might be inside. For some of us, we're gonna be right on that knee, palms resting on that front knee. Stretching through. Again, working this in a way that makes sense for where your body is at today. There's no right or wrong place to be. It's finding out where you can get the deepest sensation that suits your body structure and where you're at today. We'll all stair step up to that knee. I have no balance tonight. So we'll all stair step up. And this time left arm might reach up. It might go into a cactus arm where that elbow is bent and pushing back. So where does that feel best for you? Just a slight shift of weight forward into that front knee. We're back to this idea of weight in the front of the thigh, in the front of the pelvis, a little deeper opening for the front crease of the thigh. One more breath here. And we'll bring hands down. This time, rather than down dog, I'm going to ask you to go back into tabletop. Give your tail a little wag. And we're going to do thread the needle. So right arm reaches towards the ceiling. We're going to dive underneath the left arm. Chin, cheek, and shoulders come to rest. And that opposite arm, left arm, reaches just towards the top of the mat tonight. Unless you want to go deeper, you can go deeper, reaching that arm up towards the ceiling. Opening through that back shoulder area, through the underarm area. Just one more breath here. And then we'll slide that hand back in front of the face. That right arm comes back out. We give the ceiling a little wave. And we switch sides. So this time left arm reaches up. It dives underneath, resting on cheek and shoulder. Right arm reaches towards the top of your mat or extending it up towards the ceiling for a little deeper expression of the pose. Really breathing here to expand into the space that we've created. When you're ready, exhale, hand comes right back in front of the face. We'll slowly uncurl, we reach the arm, give the ceiling a little wave. Hand comes back down. Walk your hands a little beyond your shoulders. We come into a down dog. So we press back. You might go into child's pose or dolphin. 5 breaths here, I promise. This is our last down dog tonight. Deep inhales and exhales. It's hard to skip this one just because it's so good for your system. But I know it can be hard on shoulders, hips, and ankles. And wrists. A little hard on everything. 2 more breaths. When you're ready, let's walk those feet to the hands. We're in that nice forward fold. We'll come out of it just like we do our halfway lift. So on your next inhale, reach arms wide as we rise up. Exhale, hands come to heart. Leaving those hands at heart, we're going to take one big step back with your right leg. Big step back. Now we might plant at an angle or it might go parallel to the back of your mat. And we're just going to bend in and out of that front knee. If your knee goes way beyond that ankle, we could probably take a bigger step back with that right foot. So let your hands come on down to your hips. We had them at our heart. Hips are aiming forward. We were in that warrior one phase here. So we're going to send our arms first into cactus. So I'm looking straight ahead, bending into my front knee right above ankle. Nice press through that back leg. A little bit of a shoulder opener here. If you can, we slide hands behind back. We clasp hands, and that may not be possible. If that's the case, we just leave them right down by our sides. If you like, with that front knee bent, you can take that forward fold. Now you might go a little bit at an angle. You might go deeper. We might even be able to bring the shoulder inside the knee. Distance here, less important, as you know, than sensation. So for tonight, I'm going to hang out right here, but you might be a little bit deeper in humble warrior. You might even reach those arms. For those of us in that angle, we're engaging that core, we're pulling that belly in, we're feeling some really big, deep work in these thick muscles of the legs. We'll do one more breath here. We'll all rise back up, this time into our warrior one arms or cactus arms. That's a possibility. We'll bring hands to heart. And rather than step forward, I'm going to ask you to turn both toes in the same direction. And then we're going to shift. So it's like you're turning away from the front of your mat. So now we're turning those toes that are aimed towards the back of your mat to the back of the mat. I'm going to have to swing this leg for me around just a little bit to adjust. And once I'm there, bending in and out of that front knee, noticing the distance here, if I need to extend or make it less with this back leg. We'll land in that front knee, hips aiming forward, cactus arms. So as I cactus arm, I'm trying to draw my belly in. So not necessarily overarching back here, tucking tailbone, because we're focused on this opening versus opening through the front of the thigh, or sorry, front of the belly. When you're ready, hands swing around. We might come into that slight angle, a little bit deeper, dropping shoulder in. If you get shoulder in, you might reach your arms up. Tonight, I'm going to stay at that slight angle. Finding the strength in the legs and the core. So we're drawing belly in, pressing knuckles down. Remember, you might have hands just down by your side if it's tough to get those hands to connect. We'll rise back up, everyone, into our warrior one arms or our cactus arms. Hands come to hips, both toes turn in the same direction. For my knee folks, toes stay a little bit rotated out to protect those knees. If knees aren't a concern tonight, we go ahead and bring the outer edges of our feet parallel with the short ends of our mat. On your exhale, we start to roll down. The roll down might start to soften knees. Some of us are going to stop right here with elbows right above knees to drop head. That's the best space to be for our low back and hamstrings. Some of us are going to reach maybe a little further towards the ankles. A few of us might get hands to mat. No matter where you're at, give your head a nice nod yes and a little shake no. If it makes sense for you tonight, you might shift weight from knee to knee. Now you can go deep with that shift, especially if those feet are pretty far apart, or you can go just a little less, getting a little stretch through each of those legs. If knees say, wow, that's just not a good idea tonight, go ahead, stay put through center. So maybe moving from side to side, that increases a little stretch to the inner thigh. Maybe also a little stretch to this outside of the shin. One more breath here. We're all going to use an exhale on the way up, a little different than our yoga practice. Exhaling on the way up helps us engage the belly and protect the back. As we come up, if we're able, we're going to grab hold of fingers, wrists, or elbows. Give those shoulder blades and elbows a squeeze to the back of the room to open the front of the heart. And then we're going to heel toe in just about until we have about maybe 2 feet between our heels. So finding a space, toes this time are pointed out. That makes sense for you. We're going to bring our arms straight up. On our exhale, we'll bend knees, we'll bend elbows. Inhale, we lengthen back up. We'll exhale, bend. Now normally use our lion's face here. We're not going to do that tonight. Lengthening back up. Let's do 3 more. Bending. Your squat might go deeper than mine. Mine doesn't go that deep. I don't have a lot of cartilage left in those kneecaps anymore. So you're welcome to go deeper in your squat. I'm protecting these. Last time, we're going to hold that squat. So hold there and see if you can push your elbows back just a little bit without letting the belly spill forward. If it makes sense, we might lift one heel, then the other. You might be able to lift both heels to find a little balance here. Everyone's heels come down, arms straighten, legs straighten, hands come down. We're going to bring our feet back towards each other. Give yourself a little bit of wiggle, a little bit of shake, and a bend in those knees. You're getting ready to balance. Tonight's balance, you're welcome to do tree as always, but tonight's balance is going to be bringing that leg forward and rotating out. So hands come to heart, 4 fingers between the toes. Find that sole of the foot, so wiggling forward and back, inside and out. If it feels easier or better for you to be more centered with arms out, let those arms travel out for your balance. We're going to shift to the right foot. My left foot comes forward. So my left foot comes forward, toes stay on, and I get some information about my balance. If it's already challenged, I stay put. If I want to challenge it a little bit more, I lift my toes off. If I want to go to that top challenge, I bring my knee until it's 90 degrees, and I start to play with it a little bit. I rotate it out and draw it back in. If it makes sense, again, this is all about how can we shift the body in order to challenge the balance. We don't want to stay perfectly stable. We're not getting then a lot of feedback to our brain that says, hey, try to be balancing better. We want to be always increasing our balance. When you're ready, bring that foot down. If it isn't already there, give it all a little wiggle and a shake. We'll shift weight now over to the left foot. Sending right toes forward. Maybe toes come off. Maybe knee comes up to 90, and maybe it begins to shift. Noticing for yourself which side feels easier to balance on. We're going to let that knee slide right back in, and it lowers back down. Let's do it all again. This time I'm going to ask you, if you can, to lower your lids. Don't fully close your eyes, but see if you can take away a little bit of visual information. We're going to shift over to the right, and with that little bit of visual information gone, we're going to notice, wow, things have really changed. We're going to bring left foot forward. Toes might stay on, toes might lift, knee might come up, and knee might shift in and out. We'll bring knee back through center. We'll lower foot down. Give yourself a moment here to make sure you've got weight on both sides of the feet. Give it all a little wiggle, a little shake. Lowering the gaze again, not so much closing the lids, just, pardon me, taking away some visual information. We're going to shift over to the left side. Right toes come forward. Deciding whether toe staying on is a good idea, foot lifting off, knee might come up, and knee might shift in and out. We'll bring that foot back down. Give those knees a nice little bounce, a little rounding forward, a little opening. We're going to come to have a seat. And again, if you've got blocks or something you want to sit on, go ahead and grab it. We're not going to get too fancy of how we get there. We're just going to come on down and have a seat. We're going to go into one strength pose here while we're seated. And it's staff pose. And I know it's a little tough to see my feet. So here we go. We've got our big toes towards each other. Now, sitting tall for many of us is very challenging, and that's very much about how our hips are built. So if you're finding that sitting tall is putting a lot of strain in the front crease of your thigh, soften your knees. It's hard to see here with my dark pants, but I'm going to bend and soften my knees. That's going to allow me to go a little bit longer and taller. That's why we use blocks. It helps us kind of get out of that compression. But if we don't have blocks available, just bend those knees. Flexing toes. Inhale to grow longer and stronger through your torso. Arms start either down by your side or reaching out into a T. Now, the further the arms get away from our pelvis, the harder this gets on our back. So if arms are reaching up and you're feeling like that's a lot on your back, either T position or hands rest down by your side. Wherever you are, breathing fully. Everything's activated here. We've got that torso working, arms working, legs working. It's our mountain pose, but only in a seat. One more breath here. And then we'll bring those hands down, bend and soften those knees. We're going to go into one seated balance. And I always like to mention the ladies have the advantage here because of the way our pelvis is built compared to the gentlemen. So ladies, we might be able to bring our shins up and find balance here. Often gentlemen find that really difficult. And if that's the case, guys, lower your legs just a little bit so your heels are closer to your bottom. It's a little easier to balance there. You have more of a narrow sort of balanced real estate than we do, just because of male and female pelvis structure. So holding here, deciding where you want your feet to be, and then deciding where you want your arms to be. If you want to invigorate, fingertips reach, but it is perfectly fine to have hands behind those legs. If all of this feels way too interesting in the back, you might have soles of the feet on, lengthening through the torso and hanging out there. Let's do 2 more breaths in this balance. Everyone brings their feet down. If possible, we bring the soles of the feet together into butterfly. And again, this is hip structure. You hear me say that a lot. It's how our bones come together. Butterfly might not be accessible, so we might go into turtle where we're reaching forward. Either place, we're trying our best to do a bit of a forward fold. So pausing here to breathe fully. Two more breaths. And then we're going to go ahead and sit tall. We're going to stretch hamstrings, and we're going to do that with one side. And I'm going to mention to one of our students who I know is on tonight, you're going to do dragonfly. It's going to go here. No one-sided, just two legs straight out. Actually, I should mention this for everybody. If you're working with any SI joint, SI, sacroiliac joint issues, and they're flared up today, you want to be in symmetry. If that isn't an issue for you today, we're going to start with the right leg out. So the right leg is extended. My left knee is bent in. And for me, I'm going to rotate my knee out just a little bit. You actually might sneak your foot underneath that thigh. We'll give a little twist to that leg and then fold forward. For those of us who are in symmetry, we're just reaching towards the center. So careful here of SI joint stuff. If it's flared up tonight, this can flare it up. Ironically, can also release it. So there's always that chance that we might get relief versus a little flare, but on the safe side, let's stay symmetrical if you have SI joint stuff tonight. So finding that space where you feel some stretch. My folks with hamstring stuff, you might notice that bending your knee feels better here. Less strain on the back and less strain through the backside of the leg. One more breath here. For those of us twisted over that right leg, we rise up and we'll switch sides. If you have both legs out, you continue with the stretch going right through the center. We'll twist towards the left leg. You might flex that foot to give yourself a little extra stretch and rounding forward. Also worth noting, sometimes we experience a stretch and the full distance here sitting tall. So we're noticing how it feels. We don't have to get anywhere. We're trying to have some sense of opening through the back of the leg. We might even have some sense of release or tension happening in that low back. Noticing what's best for you and making those adjustments. It's why we practice all of this tuning in to physical sensation. We want to be able to respond to it, not just in our yoga practice, but also when we're out in the world. We'll rise back up. Everybody send your legs just straight out in front of you. So whether you had both legs out or one leg out, give them a nice little wiggle. I want to save a little time here at the end of class for longer holds. And if you've taken Yen with me, that is where we're headed. Not tonight into 5 full minutes. We're going to do 3-minute holds with some of our poses. This idea that we're releasing some connective tissue. And the first one we're going to do is some form of a back bend. So I'm going to ask you to come onto your belly. And I'm going to mention 3 different ones because I know students on here, I know a few of you may want to go into one or the other. So the first one that might be most familiar to us is Sphinx pose, where we've got elbows right underneath shoulders. We've got our feet wide. I'm going to support my head tonight, or I might support my chin tonight. For some of us, that is a little too extreme. So I'm going to send my forearms out. I still have my heart off. I might feel the bottom of my rib cage and rest my head. There are going to be a few of us who enjoy, or at least enjoy, the benefits of melting heart. And that's where our hips are right above our knees and our arms are reaching, head is resting. 3 options for 3 minutes, picking which one makes sense for you tonight. And letting yourself hear that settle into the weight of the body. This is very different than our Yan practice. In our Yan practice, we're moving, we're changing, we're strengthening, we're creating flexibility. When we're here in stillness, we're trying to remain in stillness unless we're getting the message that something's painful. We listen to that message and change the pose. In the stillness, we have an opportunity to let gravity and the proper loading of our joints here do the rest of the work, to release and make some spaces more mobile. So this is a practice about mobility. Our yang practice, where we're just moving through, is a practice about stability. We need both. As we're aging, we tend to need more mobility, and this longer hold assists us in that. Breathing fully, trying to relax as much as possible to remain without muscle tension. And spending some time noticing. Sometimes simply bringing awareness to an area will help it release. Sometimes bringing awareness to an area helps us just even find some of that sneaky tension that we tend to hold on to. When you're ready, we will all shift back into our version of child's pose. So resting back, if that makes sense. For some of us, knees and back, elbows, shoulders don't agree to that. So we come on to elbows, knees, and round the back. Just a few breaths here. You may want to release hands down by your side in your child's pose to release those shoulders. Two more breaths here. And then we're going to be shifting to come to rest on our backs. And for some of us, that's just crossing ankles and rolling. For some of us, that's swinging feet out. So coming very carefully to roll down and rest on your back, we're going to be moving into a twist. And options for a twist tonight, you might have one leg long and drawing that opposite knee in to cross over. You might have both knees stacked to drop over. You might be in that twisted roots where the top leg crosses over and then we drop over. So we're going to be dropping knees to the right, which means if your knees are stacked, you're just going to drop knees over. If you are going over to that right side, we're going to extend that leg. I'm going to think about this. If you're going over to the right side, the right leg lengthens, left knee bends in, and we draw over. If you're going into twisted roots, left thigh on top, and knees drop over to the right. So I have been mirroring you during this practice, but now I'm going to do my true right. So I'm going to be dropping my knees over to the right side. If you want to add a double twist to the spine, we lift the head, we look over the left shoulder and drop your head down to the mat. Arms are comfortable, so they might be overhead in a T. I tend to rest mine right down by my rib cage. A little longer hold here. Breathing fully, doing our best to remain muscularly soft. This opportunity to invite more ease into the body after our moving about in our earlier practice.
When you're ready, beginning to ease those knees back through the center. Give everything a little rock side to side. Your sides do not have to match. If you're doing stacked knees just drop right over to the left side. If you are going over to the left side with just one knee, this time it's your right knee that draws in and pulls over. If you're going into twisted roots, we'll cross the right thigh over the top of the left, twisting and letting them drop over to the left side. If you want to add a double twist to your spine, we lift the head, we look over the right shoulder, and let the head rest. So fully breathing here. This is one of those poses we notice perhaps how gravity is working. Your knees will naturally get closer to the floor throughout the length of this pose. Bringing out all of your day's work. This opportunity, just like a sponge, to wring out all the old and open up and offer new to come in. And maybe that's new physical, new nutrients, new oxygen, better flow to the blood vessels. Maybe it's prana, that energy or life force energy, drawn in through the breath, spreading out throughout the body as we've cleared some spaces. Twists are great to do at the end of the night. I sometimes even suggest doing them right before you go to sleep. You can do them in bed to help let go of what no longer serves you from your day. There's also a physical response that happens in the body and an opportunity with that vagus nerve to be stimulated into its rest, relax, and restore response. So twists are great to fall asleep to as well. It helps you, it might help you fall asleep. We'll begin to ease the knees back through center. Give yourself a little bit of movement if movement is called for. We're going to be moving into our final relaxation, and the invitation is to find a space for yourself at the end of class here that feels relaxing to you. I'm going to come to seated, but this space where you feel like you can let go. And it might look like a yoga pose. It might not look anything like a yoga pose. So finding your way into relaxation. Where do you feel the most ease in the body? And I'm going to ask you as you settle in to maybe take a few of those deep inhales and longer exhales. And before we move fully into that space of ease, I'd like to return to this idea of breath and rhythm. So while we're resting here, noticing for yourself the number of beats it takes you to breathe in and the number of beats it takes you to breathe out. We'll do that for 3 or 4 breaths. And then taking a moment to compare those numbers.
When we began class, what were your numbers, and when we're ending class? Now, they may be similar, they may be different, and we're just noticing. We weren't trying to necessarily get anywhere. We're simply noticing if there was change and comparing that. And now we let that notice fade away for the next few minutes here, just allowing the body to breathe itself. And the breath is traveling as it chooses. We invite the mind to quiet. And we let go of all of the doing of our hour and the doing of our day. And for these next few minutes, we allow ourselves to just be, to be resting here in ease, and perhaps to be resting in a sense of well-being. Beginning to bring awareness back to the sound of my voice, back to the space that we're sharing with others. Inviting that deeper inhale and that longer exhale. Beginning to reawaken the body, maybe wiggling fingers and toes, circling wrists and ankles. It might feel good to stretch arms overhead. It might feel good to draw knees in closer to your chest. In your own way, in your own time, we're going to begin to make our way into a seated position that feels comfortable to you. And if this gesture feels okay to you, we'll place our palms together and rest our thumbs right in front of our hearts. May all be well. May all have peace. And may we all be filled with compassion and loving kindness. The light in me is grateful and honored for the light in each of you. I bow to you. Namaste.